How often do you lie awake while the rest of the house sleeps? The world outside may be quiet, but the noise inside your mind is deafening. You worry about things you cannot touch, people you cannot help, and futures that have not yet arrived. We run through our days so fast trying to secure everything, trying to protect everyone, only to find that peace does not come from doing more. It is a heavy thing, this human heart. We think our anxiety is a sign of our love, that if we worry enough, we can control the chaos. This is not a new struggle. It does not belong only to us in this rushing age. Even in a time of silence within walls, made of gold, a great heart once felt this same heaviness. Imagine a palace, vast and shimmering in the dark. Inside, King Mindon, a man of immense power, tosses and turns. He is a conscientious ruler, a humane soul, who feels the pain of others as if it were his own. The gold of his chambers brings him no comfort. The softness of his bed brings him no rest. His mind travels far beyond the palace gates, out into the dark, worrying for those he cannot see. He is a king, yet in the quiet of the night he is just a man with a burden he does not know how to put down. When the morning finally broke, dissolving the shadows of his restless night, the king sought the only clarity he trusted. He sent a humble invitation to the great monks, his royal teachers, asking them to come to the palace to accept alms food. The sun rose, but the shadow remained over the king's spirit. The monks arrived, their robes the color of the earth, their presence a calm anchor in the opulent hall. They ate their breakfast in silence, and when they had finished, the king could hold his burden no longer. He looked at them with tired eyes. "My lords," he began, his voice heavy with the night's thoughts, "I have not slept. Those of my subjects who migrated to other Burmese towns, they are still within my territory, and I worry for them. And those who went even further, crossing into British territory, they too are my responsibility, for they are still Burmese by birth." He paused, feeling the weight of his own mortality. "I am now old, I am frail, soon I shall die. But I fear I shall go to my death, carrying a heavy conscience, the burden of failure and frustration. I feel I have done nothing for their welfare. I have failed to protect them." The Thingazar Sayadaw, a monk of deep wisdom, who sat among the royal teachers, listened gently. He saw the king's suffering was not born of malice, but of attachment. He spoke softly. "Great king, a man can but do his best, and no more. Besides, every one of your subjects has a protector already, namely, the karma of his good deeds. Therefore your majesty is worrying for nothing." The Sayadaw leaned forward slightly. "You are like the old father who worried over his two absent sons." The monk's voice lowered, transporting the king from his golden halls to a place of dust and stone. The story began far away, in a remote village nestled at the rugged foot of the Chin Hills. Here lived an old farmer and his two sons. Their lives were not marked by the soft rustle of silk, but by the harsh scrape of the hoe against unyielding earth. Day after day the three men labored under the sun. They gave their sweat to the land, but the land gave little in return. The soil was dry and unfertile, and water was a precious, scarce thing for all their toil. The harvest was meager, only tough maize and rice of the poorest quality, dry and difficult to swallow. It was a life of hunger and hardship. Eventually the horizon began to call to the young men. They saw no future in the dust of the hills. Respectfully they approached their father and asked for his permission to leave, to seek wealth and comfort in regions where the earth was kinder. The old farmer, knowing he could not bind them to his poverty, let them go. The brothers parted ways. The elder son turned his face toward the north, traveling to Bamo, near the bustling Chinese frontier. The younger son turned toward the south, making his way to the great city of Rangoon. The village grew quiet, leaving the old farmer alone with the dry fields. Time flows differently for those who wait and those who wander for the sons. The years were filled with new endeavors and the noise of commerce. In the north, the elder son found his place as a petty trader. The struggle of the Chin Hills faded from his memory as he surrounded himself with the goods of the border. He prospered, he waxed fat, his belly full of rich bacon and savory sausages brought in by the long Chinese caravans. He had found the comfort he sought. In the south, the younger son found the soil he had dreamed of. He became a prosperous farmer, working land that gave back tenfold what was put in. He too waxed fat, nourished by the juicy, nutritious rice of Lower Burma, so unlike the dry grains of his childhood. in their fullness, a silence grew in their hearts surrounded by abundance. They forgot the old farmer in the remote village. The struggle of their past was washed away by their new wealth. But back at the foot of the Chin Hills, the father did not forget. Though his bowl was often empty, his heart remained full of them. He remembered them with a deep, aching longing, wondering where they were, never ceasing to hold them in his thoughts. One day, the quiet rhythm of the village was broken. A party of pilgrims arrived, their journey leading them to the crumbling ancient pagoda that stood watch over the poor soil. These were not men of the hoe, but men of the ledger, adventurous, wealthy merchants, who traveled the breadth of the land. Because they were men of means, they did not travel with the meager rations of the hills. They brought with them the bounty of the world beyond. In their packs lay supplies of savory bacon and sausages, cured and carried all the way from Bamol. In their sacks sat heavy polished grains of nutritious rice from the wet fields of Lower Burma. The sun began to dip below the Chin Hills, casting long violet shadows across the dry earth. As was his custom every evening, the old farmer walked slowly to the pagoda. He expected only silence and stone, but instead he found the warm glow of a fire and the smell of a feast. The pilgrims, seeing the old man's weathered face and bent frame, signaled to him with open hands. They were eating their dinner, and with the kindness of strangers they invited him to sit and join them. The old farmer sat. He accepted a plate, looking down at the food with eyes that had seen 70 years of maize and dry grain. He lifted the food to his mouth. It was a revelation. The flavors were rich, oily, and satisfying, a comfort he had never known. But after only a few mouthfuls, his chewing slowed. His chin began to tremble. Tears, hot and heavy, welled up in his old eyes and spilled down his cheeks, dropping onto the very meal he was enjoying. The pilgrims, anxious to have caused offense or pain, leaned in. "Grandfather," they asked gently, "why do you cry?" The old farmer wiped his eyes, his voice breaking with love and pity. "Friends," he said, looking at the feast, "I have never tasted such delicious food before. In this moment of plenty, my heart breaks. I wish that my 2 sons were also here tonight to share in my good fortune." He looked out into the darkness toward the north and the south. "One is now in Bamo, and the other is in Rangoon. Poor boys. I am sure they have never eaten such a good meal as this in their entire lives." And so he wept for them, the sons who were at that very moment waxing fat on the very same food, living in abundance he could not imagine. He ruined his own peace, worrying for those who were already safe. We are often like the old farmer and like the good king. We let the best moments of our lives be stained by tears for problems that do not exist. We carry burdens that are not ours to carry, assuming the worst for those we love, forgetting that they too have their own path, their own protection, and their own harvest. If this story offered you a moment of clarity amidst your own worries, I invite you to remain with us a while longer. Subscribe to this space, share this quiet reflection with a friend who carries a heavy heart, or leave a word below. Let this be a sanctuary where you can return to set your burdens down.